Yeah, we have a moderator there. Yeah. But no, yeah, that'll be time. Yeah, it'll be time.
You gotta be able to ask questions.
That's the right track. Yeah. So I guess before we begin, on those screens we have the list of like who's here, who's going to be on the panel. Some of a few guys are a little bit late; they have classes late. But Stephen will be running the first part of it, and then after we're going to open up the floor for questions for folks. We have a lot of time.
Okay, so welcome everybody, and thanks to ACM for putting together this really cool panel of some of our very successful students. And I think internships are really an important part of the total process of being a student at any university. And so I think shedding light on how students are preparing and how they're engaging with employers and the best practices that they've been following is really the best way to make yourself successful. It's very competitive, the world out there. You not only have your classmates you're competing with, it's a global arena. You're competing with students in other countries for jobs at these high-flying unicorn companies, whatever you want to call them. And so any edge that you can get, any angle that you can pursue to advance your career, you got to be aggressive. In basketball, whenever they interview one of the players, pretty much the second word out of their mouth, aside from big grin, is I was aggressive. I was aggressive. That's how I was successful. And aggressive doesn't mean that you're a jerk. It means aggressive means that your attitude, your mental attitude towards your studies, towards your profession, your professionalism is like 100%, full throttle, 150%. Anytime I can learn something, I'm going to learn it. Anytime I can talk to somebody and learn from them, I'm going to do that. So it's super important that you be aggressive and think about how you can expand your knowledge. And I'm sure we're going to hear some really great stories today during the session. So I'll kick it off by, not that I want to keep the mic on myself, but I just want to share with you just a couple of things about my experience going through the process. First of all, if you don't know who I am, I'm the Director of Technology for the School of Computing. My main focus is I build labs and I maintain them. We have a small group that does that. And I also do research in an area called disaster informatics. We try to understand how disasters change the way that communication and information flows in large organizations. And then finally, I do outreach to industry. So I do a lot of talking with companies to try to understand what they're looking for in our students and how we can engage. I just spent literally the entire day yesterday completing a set of answers Google sent to us, answering a set of questions that they sent to us because they're looking to partner in a very, very close way with us in the near future. So I'm very hopeful that I'll have something really good to announce very soon about that partnership. So lots of opportunities there, but those opportunities for you really start from the internship perspective. So thinking about my undergraduate days, I figure I had about 5 to 7 jobs when I was an undergraduate. So the first couple of jobs, you always say, like, where did you get that first job? The first job was I just started hanging out at a lab. I had real interest in programming. I had computers in my high school. I wanted to find a place where I could continue programming because I couldn't afford a computer myself. So I just hung out in the lab. And one time, the lab assistant there said, "Hey, I'm quitting, and you're here all the time. Why don't you just get paid for being here all the time? They'll just pay you for what you're doing right now, which is programming." So I said, "What a sweet deal." So I took that job. That led to another job working in another lab doing more or less the same thing, allowed me more time in the lab, more time to hone my skills. And then I started moving up. And I started thinking about what am I learning and who am I learning it from. So I connected with mechanical engineering at the mechanical engineering department and worked with a professor who was doing image processing. So I learned a ton of information about how to do image processing. And then from that, an opportunity came to work at a local hospital, and I got to work with a neurosurgeon where we were looking at some cutting-edge technology. It's called a gamma knife, and looking at how to use radiation to kill cancer. And so I had to build some image processing techniques for identifying where the tumors were. So that was super cool. So I said, what else could I learn? And there was an opportunity working at a robotics lab. They had just taken a donation of some MIT robots, and they didn't have anyone who knew anything about it. They weren't going to pay for anyone to train in one. So I said, I'll do it. So walked in there, started reading, learned PL1, and started programming that assembly line. So it was, and there were a lot of other little jobs along the way. Did all kinds of little freelance. So the point is that sometimes there isn't a plan. It's just that desire, that drive to want to learn and want to expand, right? So that's what I recommend that you pursue, right? That is when you start adopting that mentality, there are going to be all sorts of doors that are going to open for you. And it just starts with the attitude. What's your attitude towards this? So that's my spiel. So I'd like to let now every panelist, share their thoughts in the same way. Maybe have an opening statement. Tell us about what year you're in, what you're studying, and what were some of your early experiences, things that you'd like to share about yourself so we get to know you a little better. Because we'll be spending about an hour or so here talking, so that would be great. So if you could kick it off and just introduce yourself and go for it.
All right, so I don't know if this works.
No, that's further ahead.
Okay. All right, so it works. Great. My name is Leon Liang. I graduated already the past semester, so now I'm just sitting here not doing much until I start working again. But my journey started off really working for the school. I worked under Panthersoft, and then from there it led on to other opportunities, such as I was at BlackBerry for testing, and then after BlackBerry I went to JP Morgan and did some software engineering there for the summer, and then now that I'm back, I landed a job with Microsoft, and now I'm just waiting. So going to what Steve said is that I find that in order to get these opportunities, you just need to surround yourself with people smarter than you. I didn't come in here knowing a lot. I was like Steve, just hanging around the lab. I met some really wonderful people that you're going to meet very soon. And from there, it just kicks off to what you learn and building off of friendships. So that's about it.
Thanks.
Hi guys, my name is Janier Canales. So a little bit about my history. I didn't start coding until I was in sophomore year when I took programming 1. I thought it was a really cool class. I took it with Minani, it was really cool. I mean, just writing something and then making the computer do something. I thought that fact was really cool. I mean, I always ask myself, like, how do you go from this to like creating Google? It's so simple. There's no way that it's just this. But it was a really cool experience. I think the fact that you get to like write something or like create things that make the computer do something is really cool. And I spent a lot of time during programming 1. I spent a lot of time in front of the computer learning and stuff like that. And then I stopped for about like a couple months because I became a TA for that same class after. After that, I started learning like a little bit of web because that was the hot thing back then. Still is. At least for college, it's like they call it like the easiest thing to do. So I started learning like web and stuff like that, HTML, CSS, about like 2.5 years ago. HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and then I got a job at a company called TechBird. It's like I know some of us know about it. It's about like in Coral Gables. They had a project that was called Capital Market Solutions about like selling houses and stuff like that. Funny enough, I got kicked out of that project because I wasn't doing really well. I was that thing was like I was very I was going through a lot, so I wasn't doing well. Not in school, and I wasn't doing well in that project. So I'm actually glad that I got kicked out. Even though the project never finished. After I left, the person I was working with also left because the company wasn't doing good. But then after that, I didn't stop there. I said, okay, it happens. So I kind of like went back to the basics and started learning like the basics. And I think when you do a field when you're in a field such as computer science, if you learn the basics really well, you're gonna find out that learning everything else is easy. Like if you understand the basics, if you understand why things work and why they are the way they are, then it's easier to understand everything else. You don't have to memorize the code. You don't have to memorize like lines and stuff like that. All you need to understand why it works and how it works. And I think that's what really did it for me. I always try to understand why something works and how it works, and then from there I can just do anything else. A little bit moving forward after that experience, I also in the summer I joined a company called Smart Computer up in actually that's thanks to Leon. That was thanks to Leon. He interviewed first. Yeah, he interviewed first. So he went through the door. He got shot because he got denied. And then he told me, "Oh, this is what they did." I was like, "Okay." So I studied with stuff, and yeah, thanks to him, I got that job over there.
Friends, you guys need friends.
So his statement is actually true. Yeah, thanks to your friends, you can learn things like this, and also they make you learn a lot. So yeah, thanks to him, I got that offer over there. It was like an hour and a half drive from here to there, so I was driving almost like 4 days a week. It was kind of painful. I stayed there for a year, and then from there, last year I started working on my own projects. Another project that I'm working on that I started as a software engineering project, but it's like an analysis system. I actually spoke to Steve about it. So I've been working on that almost a year and going really hard on it. I think I'm. Oh, I thought you were. Yeah, I'm speaking too much. So moving forward, yeah. So right now, then I interviewed last semester for Microsoft and also got the offer this year. I think we're destined to work.
I guess so.
So yeah.
Hi guys, so I'm Andres. I actually, like Jamir, I didn't start programming until like later into my my college career. This is actually my third semester as a computer science major. I started with programming 1 because I was a math major, and they make you take programming 1 even though I had sworn to myself that I would never ever in my life get into programming. Because I had told myself that if I didn't start when I was 5 years old, it's not worth it anymore, because the people in this department, some of them have been making games since the second they could hold the computer. So I was like, I can't do that. I haven't been doing that, so there's no way that I can compete with these people. And I feel that that sort of thing completely vanished when I walked into my first programming 1 class. And I was with students that had been programming since they were little, and I felt that I was like at the same level as them. And so the first couple semesters when I was taking programming 1 and 2, I really kept to myself, and I was doing really well in programming 1 and 2. And this really inflated my ego. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to my first hackathon, I'm gonna destroy everyone. I go to my first hackathon, and I'm like, wow, I don't know a thing. And then after that, I started really involving myself with the department more and met all of these awesome people. And I feel that the way to learn isn't just like sitting behind your books and just like doing the things you're assigned to do. It's an active process, and I feel that now, since I've gotten involved with everyone and I've tried to like get out of my comfort zone, I feel that I'm doing a lot better, and I think that it's really important that you broaden your horizons. And also accepting failure is very important. I applied to like 10 internships. I got like 2. So yeah, and the ones that I got when I was interviewing, I was getting rejection after rejection. And let's just say I had no ego after that. So it was a really humbling experience meeting all of these people.
Yeah, I mean, that really says a lot. There's some really cool insights, especially about the intimidation that you feel like oh, there's of course, everybody in the room who does do better than I am. And I think that's so important for everybody here to hear, is that it doesn't matter what everybody else is doing. What matters is what you do on the golf course, right? You can control the outcome of the game. So don't worry about what everybody else is doing. And the other piece there that I heard that was really, really important is don't be afraid to get out of your comfort zone. I can't tell you how many times if I had just said, oh, that sounds too hard, I can't do that. What's the worst that can happen, right? Junior, it's like they shut you down, you gotta reboot, right? So I think the net of it is go for it, and don't feel like you don't have all the skills, because I guarantee if you wait for that moment where you think you have all the skills, you'll be old and gray, because you'll never have it all under control. You've got to just dive in.
Hello, I'm Angelo Saracino. I'm a junior student here at FIU, a junior year student. I don't know, where do I begin, I guess, talking about myself. I'm a developer, but a jokester first. I got into development I got into development because I was in AP History, if you guys remember that from your high school years. And the teacher was just like, I need a website done for a basketball coach. And I didn't know how to develop anything, so I said yes. $100 later, and an embarrassment after, I vowed never to touch the computer again. So I got into electrical engineering, and I went into FIU, because we have a pretty good electrical engineering program. But because electrical engineering does make you take like programming 1, I had to touch the computer or else I'll get an F. So I did. And then I was invited by a classmate to go to one of these things called Startup Weekend. And they were making this application. It was pretty cool. That's like Uber, but for beauty. So like, people who like have quinceañeras and stuff like that, like the makeup person comes to their house and they do that. So like, maybe let's try this out, right? It didn't work. But from that failure, I started actually getting more involved in hackathons. I met an awesome group of people. And then one thing led to another. I got my first internship at Adobe, which was crazy because like they knew I was a terrible developer, but they thought I was funny, so they needed a comedian in the office. So that was in Seattle, and then after that, I'm going to be headed to Bridgewater, which is, for those of you who don't know, Bridgewater is a hedge fund. They manage $200 billion, so no pressure. But yeah, in terms of like development expertise and stuff like that, usually I tend to be more on the PM side of things. So like in terms of project management, basically it's all about, how do you manage your development resources, and then like if you have to, right, like then you write code. So I do write a lot of code. It's just preferably, if it was up to me, I would just be basically like managing projects. Also like co-directed Mango Hacks, so that's kind of something interesting. Yeah.
Hi guys, I'm Krista Shakaro. So my story starts with my brother. So like Andres said, there are always those people that the moment they pick up a computer, they're like programming. That's my brother. And I did not look at that and be like, wow, I want to do that. I was like, God, that looks awful. Like I'd see him programming and I'm like, you look so lonely, like you look miserable, like I don't want to do that. And so the rest of my life was, I will not do what my brother does. So I was like, okay, trying to pick what to do for college. I was like, what do I want to do? I like math, but not like real math, because like, so what do you do with real math? So I picked an applied math. I got a degree in statistics. I'm graduating this semester. And for the degree in statistics, you have to take programming 1. I come into programming 1 and I'm like, this isn't that bad. And so I'm just like, okay, well, programming 2 is an elective for stats. I'm going to take programming 2. I take programming 2 and I'm like, this is not bad at all. And then I'm in the lab and everyone's just like, you should come to a hackathon this weekend. I was like, what? And they were like, you should come, it's here. I was like, but why? And they were like, just come. And so I came. I was standing around and I was like, okay, I'm here. Now what? And this guy walks up to me and he's just like, hey, I've seen you around. We have an empty spot on our team. Do you want to be on our team? And then he tries to like sell me on all this stuff and I'm already like, I don't have anything better to do, so, sure. And then we actually won that project, which I was like, wow, maybe I'm great. And then I went to another hackathon and I was not great. I lost. I lost miserably. Our project did not work. I was like, I'm never going again. But then all the people like in ASAM that I now met from like these 2 hackathons, so they were like, no, you've been to 2 already. You can't stop now. Like, we need you. You're coming. And I was like, I'm not going to Orlando. And they were like, you're coming. Too bad. And that's kind of how it all started. I was just like, well, this is what I do now. I don't completely suck. People seem to want me here. And that just became what I did all the time. I surrounded myself with people that were always programming. And I was like, I should be doing those things too. Okay. And then people are talking about what they're learning, and I'm like, I'm not learning anything. I should be learning something. And it was that constant, like, I need to keep up that, like, pushed me until, like, I realized, hey, I actually know how to do stuff. So come time for, that summer, I was like, okay, actually, like, I want to do this. So I was like, okay, people that do programming, something that's really important is data structures. And so I stayed the summer extra, and I only took data structures so that I could, like, get ahead and get, like, early on that. And then the next, like, fall, so data structures, now it's, like, fall semester, everyone's applying to internships, like, serially applying. And it's, like, we find, like, giant lists, and we're like, okay, all, like, 200 of these, just, like, email, and email, and email. And if anyone, like, got another, like, internship thing, normally the recruiter would be like, oh, do you have any friends you want to recommend? And they were like, oh, yeah. And so, like, we'd, like, pass around, like, recruiters and things, and, like, no one would get anything. Until I got an internship at Fidelity Investments up in Rhode Island. And after I got that internship, I was like, okay, now I'm only going to apply to places that I would, like, go to instead of, like, that I would rather, that I prefer, because I already had something. So I somehow got an internship, not an internship, an interview for an internship with Facebook and Google. And I was like, wow, they're already interviewing me. That means I'm, like, good. But no, that doesn't mean you get it. You still have to pass the interview. And so I got rejected by both of those, which was like, wow, I suck. Like, I thought that, like, I was good. No. And after a summer of, like, interning and learning, I kind of realized that everyone kind of, like, sucks. It's really true. It's just a matter of time of, like, you realize, I don't know how to do this, and then you go, and you're like, okay, do I give up, or do I learn how to do it? And all the people that tend to be, like, good and successful are like, I don't know this. Let's go, like, investigate. And I find that to be the main defining factor. And so in my internship, I got a mentor. His name is Andrew. They did not assign me a mentor. I just, like, found him, and I was like, you're pretty cool. And he was like, a little underling to, like, teach the way of, like, good programming. And, like, he really inspired me for a lot of those things, because he didn't, like, go to a standard college. Like, he, like, worked for 17 years straight. And I decided, like, every time I write something, I want it to be just like him. And I try and keep that with me now. And I don't know how to wrap this up, but I just kind of, like, I keep going to hackathons, I keep going with these people, I just keep that same mentality of, like, learn, interview. Yeah. And then I interviewed with Google, and they accepted me, so I was really happy. So I'm going to be going there in July.
Awesome. So just sidebar on that. So this,
Oh, yeah, you're on the panel, yeah.
congratulations, you're on the panel. So just one little sidebar insight. So this notion that says, hey, I don't know this, and I guess either I learn it or I fail. Okay, so you know, yes, that's part of our discipline. That's part of our culture. Is that you are going to encounter things that you're not going to know how to solve, and you're going to be faced with that obstacle. And the sooner you embrace the fact that that is never going to change, the more successful you are actually going to be. And then now for these guys that are at the point where they're still seeing that as a kind of a novel kind of, wow, let's try this, that's kind of curiosity. I would say the next level for you guys is going to be more like the Matrix. Everybody's seen the Matrix here, right? Not really? Maybe? Okay, that's your homework for the weekend. So there's a scene where, you know, you can plug stuff into your brain, you can learn stuff instantly. That's where you're going as professionals. You get to the point where, okay, I got called into this meeting and it's about healthcare analytics. I'm not a domain expert in healthcare analytics, but I got to talk to a bunch of people who are experts, and I actually have to learn something in like the next 2 hours on this. So just giving you a sense that that's where the industry goes, is that wherever there's an opportunity, you jump on it, and they expect you, because you're a computer scientist, to be able to break down problems, doesn't matter what domain that it is in, to break down problems in a way that understands what the limitations and what the capabilities of computing can do. And like it or not, that's where we're all heading, is to harness that ability in your mind to understand patterns and know how to apply those patterns regardless of the domain. So, no pressure.
Hi everyone, I'm Cecia. I'm a junior now. So I basically started late too. I started programming after I transferred from business. I was doing business for like a year and a half. And then I hated it. I thought it was too easy. So I went into programming 1, and then I literally got my first internship right after. I don't know how, but it was behavioral, and I got it, and I learned a lot. So then I come back. Well, I did come back for my junior year, and I've been learning a lot. I've been doing a lot of more hackathons, getting more involved. And yeah, so I basically had more of a breakthrough of what I really wanted to do when I went to Grace Hopper this past year, which FIUSCIS like graciously funded for 25 female students. So before there, we basically submitted our resumes, and I was like, oh, like I'm probably not gonna get anything. Like I'm literally like so new at this, I don't know anything. And I ended up getting like 11 interviews on the spot. So what they do is they call you in like before, and they're like, hey, you want to schedule an interview at Grace Hopper? So you know, like me being super new and like not knowing anything, like I walked into Grace Hopper already with all of these lined up, and it felt really like scary because you realize that you're really close to graduating and you need to get a job, and like when you start late, you feel like you're not at the level again. So yeah, like how he was saying, like for me, half and half I got half of the offers, and then the other ones I got rejected. So like rejection really does happen, and it's okay because like you always have more years to go. So yeah, well, I'm still deciding on where I'm gonna go. I'm leaning towards Visa, but I also just got into Fermilab, which is like the equivalent of CERN in the United States. So I don't know, but yeah, definitely like hackathons have really helped in getting more skills for interviews and stuff.
Okay. Hey guys, I'm Christina. I'm a senior studying computer science. I was also a business major. I didn't know anything about programming. I just wanted to challenge myself, so I went ahead and just cold turkey just switched and just threw myself into a bunch of programming classes. I was actually doing really well. I was getting A's in all my classes. A lot of professors asked me to LA for them. Everything was going really well. And then I realized I don't have any experience at all. All I have is my A's, and like it wasn't really anything. I didn't have any programs under my belt. I didn't have any cool projects I did. So I was like, okay, I need to get an internship. But I was really intimidated by internships. Like he said, I thought I had to know everything. When you look at the qualifications, it's like all these languages you've never even heard of before. So I was like, oh my God, I don't know any of this. So I didn't want to apply for any internships, but my friend Adam forced me to, basically. So the first internship I ever applied for was Google. Go big or go home. And I didn't do as well as I wanted to, but just putting myself out there was really good because they actually called me back and they were like, we don't think you're ready for an internship, but we do have a mentorship program. And in that program, I learned a bunch. I had to do a whole project with a group, a chat app. I hadn't even taken a networking class yet, and I just learned so much. And they also gave us like mock interviews, so I got more comfortable with interviewing. I applied for a bunch of more places after. I got rejected a bunch of times, but you know, I still put myself out there. And I also attended Grace Hopper conference October, and I got 2 offers. So I ended up picking Capital One, so good, confident booster. I didn't fail at every interview, and so it was good. So it's important not to get intimidated by all those qualifications and still go out and try, and also give back. I'm helping little girls learn how to code now, so that's fun. and that's that.
Hi, my name is Aisler. So I went to Google last summer, and one tip I can give is that I think what made me more competitive than other people, I would say the way I took the classes. So in my freshman year, I really pushed to get the core computer science classes. So I was taking data structure by the end of my freshman year, and I almost take the programming 3 as well in by the end of my freshman year. So there was like a class full of juniors and seniors, and I was like the only freshman. And that's made me a lot more competitive, because if you think about it, if you start programming in your sophomore year, you basically spend a whole year without doing any programming. So the advice that I would give to people is start programming as early as possible, so you have more experience. So it's not really that hard to take those classes. So in my first semester, I took programming 1. Then in my second semester, I took programming 2 and fundamentals, I think it's called, and discrete math. And finally, in summer, I took data structure, and I almost take programming 3, but it was really late, and I dropped in the first week. So if you know any freshmen, tell them to do it like that, because it's gonna make them more competitive. Another thing that I did, it was I applied to only first year and second year internship. So I was not competing with juniors or seniors. And think about it, I went coding for a year, and the other sophomores have just started taking the first programming class. That's really simple.
Pro tip. So, and I'd like to hear more from you, but just as a side, so we've heard this before. We know employers are looking to see if you've done, what is your exposure to programming in your freshman year? And they're asking about that. And they're asking us, why aren't you requiring them to go deeper into the flowchart? So there's a little bit of a history, and the history is in the state university system, it was always lower division, 60 credits, upper division. So the idea was you spend the first 2 years effectively getting your AS, okay, and which meant that you're doing liberal arts studies, right? And then you do specialization. So that's old school. So then they dropped the requirement that said you had to have completed all of your lower division before you hit 60 credits. So that allows for some hacking, some plan of study hacking. And if you want to, so hack college, that's definitely the way to go, because it will certainly put you ahead of the game. And it's putting you in the sweet spot in terms of getting the internship. But tell us more.
Yeah.
So maybe tell us a little bit more about your background. You said you had no programming experience prior to your first year?
Yeah, in my first year, I basically started. I did some of it in high school, but it was nothing to compare when I really started.
So did you know you wanted to go into programming initially, or
yeah.
I mean, like what was the attraction to come to FIU, and like did you kind of know that that's what you want to do, or?
I always liked video games and finding how stuff works, and I wanted to know how a computer works, and it was like a big mystery to me.
So you just like told mom and dad, like, hey, I'm just going to take like massive amounts of programming classes so I can learn how to write video games. That was the pitch? I mean, if it works, go with it.
Then also I did is web page called Project Double, which are basically maxi puzzle programming puzzles, and I really like them. And I spent a long time doing those as well, and that's worked with really good practice.
Cool. I mean, were there any other things in that first year that were really important to help you be successful? Were there any other, because that's pretty challenging to dive in like that. Never taken programming before, and I'm going to jump right in and just load it all up in the first 2 semesters.
I think one thing to refer me is I usually give gap between classes. So between classes I maybe do 1 or 2 hours gap, and then I just went to a library and start coding in Project Developer. and little by little we formed a habit, and I did a lot of work.
Cool, cool. So since we're in the subject of preparation, so I want to have a set of questions that kind of like break into two parts. One part is what was your prep for the intern experience, and then like what was the intern interview experience like? So we'll kind of break it down into questions into those two groups. So maybe you can chime in, feel free anyone, raise your hand, but to talk a little bit about what your prep perspective was for doing these interviews. What kind of made you feel like actually gave you confidence in doing it, or helped you feel like you got an edge by doing this? Anybody want to jump in on that?
Sure thing.
Angelo.
Yeah. So I think one thing to note is that like there's like different pathways on how you can like get into a company or where you want to apply to. I think there's like two main pathways, right? There's like people who are really solid academically, right? They're good computer scientists. They get A's in their classes, and you're able to understand at the academic level, right? Like what makes a good program, right? End of the day, like when we tricked rocks into thinking, we're just storing values in memory, and how you manipulate those values. Basically is how you get your A's, right? This is on the other side, right? If you're me and you're dumb, you understand like, well, my engineering background is not very solid. My math background is not very solid. But one thing I do understand is how the pieces can communicate well together. Applied engineering at full-time roles usually require you to work with stuff that's already built and make it communicate with each other. And then when you do get to the point where you have to build systems and build services, you're able to understand like how they work. And you can work from the abstractions down, and then if you're on the CS side, right, you can work from the bottom up. So in the preparation of my interview process, there were two main focuses that I really wanted to tackle, and one was one was basically whenever you interview or whenever you're applying for interviews, right, you need to have a good resume in order for you to get in that front door. But the problem is that whenever you apply online to those online portals, it's like throwing your resume into a black hole. The problem is that many of the recruiters have long queues of people to look through, very talented applicants, more talented than I. The best way to jump that line is talk to your recruiter. And they come here to FIU, but before they were actually coming here, send them emails, send them, say hi to them on LinkedIn, right? If you ever reach out to a recruiter, you're doing their job. You're making their job easier. So they're going to reward you for that. So once you do talk to your recruiter and you do get into the interview, end of the day, you're not interviewing with HR, you're interviewing with an engineering lead or a team lead. And the number one question is, outside of your ability to do data structures, is do I want to work with this person? Do I want to intern with this person? Because you can be the smartest engineer and implement, merge sort, right, in 5 seconds, right? But if you happen to be a total jerk while you're doing it, they're not going to want to work with you. So I think first step for me, right, was I'm going to be presentable and I'm going to be able to talk with them. And then the second step is when I'm doing, obviously you do practice for your data structures, right? You're not going to come in there knowing nothing. But, end of the day, it's more about thought process than it is about being correct. Because end of the day, engineering is not about being able to regurgitate data structures on a whiteboard. It's about how you regurgitate that. So what I mean more is, let's say if you don't know something, really like having a conversation with your interviewer. Most of the time, that is actually how actual engineering works. There's going to be projects that you're given that you don't know, that you're going to have to do some investigations, either with some teammates or with a little bit of Googling, to actually be able to understand those concepts. And being able to have them understand how you research and how you problem solve really gets you that role. And then the third part, right, is again having a good algorithms and data structures foundation. I mean, again, there's only so much finesse you can do. End of the day, you do need knowledge. So again, probably jumping into your data structures book, your slides, your programs, getting comfortable with the editor. A lot of times, especially when I first started developing, there are times where you just open up like an empty text file and you're kind of wondering, all right, how do I get from blank page to stuff on there? And I think that's kind of like the big jump between beginner to journeyman, right? Is, all right, cool, I know that there's a main function, right? I know I have to do things. I just don't know what I have to do. Getting comfortable with getting that starting process. I think the number one thing that helps me get a grasp in my interviews is I just instantiate some variables, right? You know, I start, all right, well, this is the problem, right? I'm gonna go start representing it from a data standpoint, right? So that's kind of like in sum of like how I approach my interviews. But I know she probably has a different attempt. Yeah.
So while you're passing that, so what I really liked there was the notion of the soft skills. Because we hear this a lot from the recruiters. It isn't just like Angelo said, is that you know all the technicals, is that is this person someone who can work in a team, and will they mesh, or will they add something, or will they be disruptive in a negative way? So I mean, so what does that translate into? Do I need to wear a suit when I go to the interview? No. Do I need to take a shower before I go to the interview? Yes. I'm serious, guys. I mean, you can wear shorts and a t-shirt. Believe me, the guys understand. It's the engineering mindset. But you got to be able to sit, you know, around in close quarters and not be offensive. So there's that. But there's also just, you know, and I like the aggressive but not creepy approach, right? So, hey, I am going to reach out to LinkedIn. I know they're coming. I know the name of the person. Hey, just want to say hello. Yeah, I'm looking forward to meeting you at the event. You're definitely going to get a reply from that. Creepy, I'm waiting for you in the parking lot. Where are you? So, you know, there's a...
So one of the, I just want to talk about technical interviews, because I do have a little piece of advice from the Google engineers that gave us mock interviews, gave us feedback. And one of the things that they all mentioned was the worst thing you can do in an interview is be really, really quiet while you're coding. They actually want to hear everything you're thinking. Even if you think it's wrong, they kind of want to help you. And if you're kind of going in the wrong direction, they'll kind of guide you. But if you don't say anything at all, they have no idea what you're thinking, and you might just, so. And also the cracking the coding interview book.
Oh, you actually?
Yeah.
So when Ian from Google, our alumni, who comes down here every year, he mentioned some of these books, but he also mentioned that he would warn people about those books, because sometimes they glamorize certain questions that really aren't being asked by Google. So, you know, I mean, so I guess, so, you know, hey, you know, I got the Google interview. In your mind, what was paramount? Like, above all, I need to spend time doing X. What was the X?
I think most problems that they ask are like popular problems that you can find on HackerRank and stuff. They just tweak it a little. So I think definitely practicing those problems could help a lot. And data structures, obviously.
Who in the audience here knows about HackerRank? You've heard of it, or you've been to it? Okay, so that's your second homework, all right? Your first homework was to watch The Matrix and realize that you can learn anything at any moment, at any time, and that's where you're heading in your job. And the second thing is you need to do a little bit of intel. And if you want the intel about what kinds of questions you're going to get asked at an interview, HackerRank really has sort of nailed that. And a lot of companies are just outsourcing to HackerRank to you know, basically have you take the technical exam with them, and then they'll follow up after that. So getting good with them is a good idea.
Yeah, I just want to add, there's like a ton of like also other websites, right? There's interviewing.io, HackerRank. Yeah, there's Facebook Interview Lab, LeetCode. Project Euler is like a problem set that you can do. I think the number one thing, especially with cracking coding interviews, is not necessarily the book itself, but it's just having problems and doing practice. Like, again, getting comfortable with writing code, getting comfortable with, like, not only on the whiteboard, right, but also on your computer. A lot of companies not only have been adopting HackerRank, but also been adopting CoderPad. And what CoderPad is like this collaborative interface, right, where you write code and then you run the code, right? So like, end of the day, because like, I mean, there's been kind of like a trend of getting away from like not having a lot of assistance, right, to like having a reasonable, you know, simulation, at least justifiable in like an hour, right, to like understand like what your engineering skills are about. So like usually your interviewers are now becoming more okay with like using like the Java docs, right? If you write in Java, you know, as long as you don't like, you know, get the default sort from Java, right? You have to still implement it. But you know, oh, I forgot how to, what is it, make a main function, you know? It happens, you're nervous, everyone's nervous. The interviewer probably also doesn't want to be there, so, you know, depends. But you have a bunch of these different scenarios, right? And I think just preparation and practice is another one thing. Yeah. You were,
So I'm just going to talk about the technical interview, the coding challenge process. So last year I started interviewing and I was going all over the place. I had an interview with Amazon, I had an interview with, I think I had one with Google. It didn't go so well. And also one thing, I keep getting rejection email even today. So that explains to you how many rejections and how many companies I applied for. I was sent to a group chat, like my rejection of the day was from like Tumblr. Great. Anyway, so these technical questions, I think I've gone through like at least 200 questions on LeetCode, right? Eventually, you're going to start finding patterns, right? And you're going to go into each interview and you're going to spend like 5-10 minutes of just looking at the problem and just like thinking out loud about what you think about this problem. And there's only so much they could ask. There's only so much they could tweak. And once you recognize that pattern, you get a lot more comfortable with all these questions that they throw at you. You know the steps to solving it. You know how to really approach it in general sense and what you need to tweak. So I guess what I can tell you guys is that go on LeetCode or HackerRank and really start early. Don't start when you get that coding challenge. But if you can, do one question a day. It's really not that much. One question, spend like 30 minutes thinking about it. If you don't solve it, then look at the answer and just try to like have that repertoire of really things that you do know. The algorithms are behind it. There are very common ones like greedy algorithms. Dynamic programming, not so much unless you're interviewing with Microsoft or Amazon. They tend to ask those, but general algorithm problems going to help.
So, one interjection. How many people here have taken theory of algorithms? One person. 2 people, 3 people. I heard an expletive on my ear there. So you know the pain, right? That's a key course, right? Theory of algorithms, and the next course after that is analysis of algorithms. Okay. What you really dive into there is what you're kind of reverse engineering here. In those courses, you're learning the underlying foundations of the problems. And then they're giving you the tools to solve them. And then the neat thing is, in the analysis of algorithms, it goes further. It's sort of like you become the god that can transform problems. So, in other words, they give you the power to recognize that certain problem actually looks like another problem that is completely different. But with a series of transformations, you can turn it into that problem which you know how to solve. So just, again, thinking about, like, you want to hone your skills. I know that course is a quote-unquote ball breaker, right? But I'll be honest with you, it's a critical course. If you want to go to the next level and become that data scientist and really, you know, rock some serious machine learning, you're going to have to champion those courses. So take a graduate level course in your senior year is what I'm suggesting, because that's going to give you a leap ahead when you're competing.
Just want to add, I know Chris wants to say something. I just want to add something real quick. For me, in the case of preparation for interviews, I actually didn't follow any of that. I didn't do the book. What is it? The book?
That one.
That's what I thought.
Cracking
Cracking the code interview, or like I didn't do many online problems and stuff like that. That one.
This is the book. This is the Bible.
It's not the
It's not. This is the false prophet.
the algorithms book, the CLRS book that you take in those classes is the Bible.
So I didn't follow none of that, or like I did do some problems on like code and stuff like that, but not too many. And I felt kind of scared because I saw everybody talking about it. I'm like, I'm gonna look at this. I'm gonna fail. You know, like I got kind of like scared, but I think what helped me was, so what I do, the skill that I think I've learned the most is how to learn. How to learn and how to dissect something. Look at a problem or look at anything and dissect it in terms of like everything. And like once you learn that, you can learn anything. And I think learning how to learn, it's actually a course that I took, learning how to learn. Because it teaches you how to look at something and dissect it, break it down, see the things that, how can you apply, how can you solve it one time and stuff like that. And by doing that, I think you can learn anything. And I think that's one of the most important skills as a programmer, software engineer. You're never gonna know everything. That's impossible. So if you can learn how to learn things really fast and how to dissect them and how to just get the grasp of what the problem is or what they're asking about is, then I think from there you can do pretty much anything. And I think that's how what's his name, the CEO of Tesla, Elon Musk, and that's one of his skills. That's one of the skills that he has. As you know, like he knows how to learn things really fast, really well. So yeah, that's what did it.
Okay, I'm going to keep it brief because I know that there are other questions. But for me, my biggest problem was I always thought that there was like one answer that my recruiter or like my interviewer was looking for. And that, you know, they give you leading questions and they're like, okay, this is what we want. And I tried and I'd go for it and I'd go for it and I'd go for it. But in the back of my mind, it'd be like, I don't know what I'm doing. What are you looking for? Just like, what do you want from me? And I remember in one of my final round Google interviews, I had 6 minutes left and the guy was just like, you got some problems. I was just like, And I just like threw all of that to the side and I was like, I'm not gonna get it anyway, but I'm gonna do it my way. And I just kept with that of just like, I'm gonna stop like trying to figure out what you're doing and I'm just gonna like do it my way. And I somehow got the question right, like in that 6 minute time span. And so remember, like if you've gone to this point, if you've like worked this far and if you're like mid-interview, they're interviewing because they think you know something. And so like instead of trying to like figure out what they want, like just show them what you know and they're gonna pick from that.
So, any other stories about interview prep that anyone wants to share?
Oh, trust your instincts about it. Trust your instincts.
Trust your instincts,
like,
definitely.
Yeah, that's what Chris was saying. Trust your instincts. Don't get intimidated by what they do.
Also, when you start doing all these problems, don't be afraid to suck. Because I got really scared because I was doing like, I tried like 10 problems and I was like, okay, I can't solve any of these. I must be too stupid for this. But like, trust me, by the end of like your 500th problem, you will know something. Like I did like my 700th interview a couple weeks ago and I felt like I knew what I was doing for the first time. So like, the point isn't like knowing how to do it your first time, just get there eventually. And don't be afraid to suck, because you will suck and you'll get better.
Just a general survey. Who here is like a freshman or a sophomore? All right, dope. Yeah, so you guys also don't have to deal with like the pressures of like higher level interviews if you guys are young, again, like university programs, first year, second year programs, or especially like more about mentorship. They just kind of want to see how good of a person you are, which is great because you don't have to write as much code.
Yeah, go ahead, Cecily.
One thing I do want to add, I really do think algorithm techniques is like the best course you can take after data structures. A lot of the internship questions that I've had so far are very similar to the ones that they teach you in that class, so I really do recommend taking that class.
It's an elective.
Yeah, it's an elective.
I had an actual problem from that class in an interview. It was like one of the big ones, and I was like, "Hey." Yeah.
So that's an important point. A lot of times there's this feeling of this disconnect. Like, what are we teaching here in the university that's relevant to the industry? And there's this perception, I think, that has gotten out in the general like community that every one of us in this room are just going to be web developers. That's it. We're all just a bunch of web developers, and we're going to do front end for the rest of our lives, and that's it. That's what every single company in America or abroad wants from a computer scientist. And that is such a narrow focus it is such an uninformed and uneducated perspective. And unfortunately, there's a lot of companies that breed this concept that if you're just a web developer, you're set. And there's nothing, I got nothing against web developers, because as a freelancer and as an undergraduate, you can make good money as a web developer. Say, represent. So there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, but to go, because they like to, everyone likes to put you into a box. So when you start hearing this thing about take classes with algorithms and all this, and you're like, I'm not math friendly. There's no way I can do this. Again, the minute you say I can't, something, so that little devil that sits on the shoulder needs to poke you and say, you gotta try this. Just for kicks. Let's just go for it. Let's just see what happens. Because if you don't step forward and take challenge, you're limiting those opportunities, right? And that's what all of this is about. And you're not gonna get those opportunities if you just sit back and think, well, I'll just get the web developer job. That'll settle. You know, that'll be fine. I'll settle with that. It's not enough. You gotta push. How much time do you guys spend in your schoolwork and the things that you're doing per week? Like, can you give me a sense, like study habit? You know, what do you think? What works for you? And then tell us, are you like currently working, taking classes, and like how much time do you study, or you're not working, or what's the layout?
I think when you have exam rolling out, obviously there's a peak there, because you have to study for the test, right? I think everyone knows this. Outside of that, I really don't spend that much time on schoolwork. Enough to get an A, but rest of my time I'm either traveling to a hackathon, doing some sort of interview, or I'm working on a personal project. And these are the personal projects that, like, when you go into these interviews, you're gonna have things to talk about, right? It's like, oh, what else I've done? Oh, I made this machine learning project using so-and-so, and it's pretty cool because I encountered blah, blah, blah problems, and I solved it with blah, 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 right? These questions and these stories, you're not gonna get unless you're out there doing a hackathon or making a personal project and get that experience. You know,
I can, do you want that?
Yeah. Okay. I spend, so I do it by sections, right? How
Yeah.
much is school? Okay.
What's your what's the typical week for junior? What do you?
Okay, so right now, since I'm only taking 2 classes, I don't spend that much time on class. Typically, it depends the class I'm taking. Depending on the class I'm taking, depends how much time I spend on it. Usually programming classes, I spend a lot of time, like a lot of time. Theory classes, math classes, not so much, because I like more like, I'm more of a hands-on person, so like when it's a programming class, I'll be the first one, the homework done, everything done. But if it's like the math class, you see me doing it like the day before. So depending on that, but if I'm not doing any programming class or I'm doing anything like that, then I'm working on like a personal project, a project that I've been doing right now, and a project that I've been doing for like almost a year. I'm working on that a lot of time. I'm working on that almost every day. I'm going on hackathons with friends here. So I spend a lot of time in front of the computer. Sometimes too much time in front of the computer, and then I have to like a couple of days not look at my computer. So yeah, I think that's what does it for me. I sit down and try to dissect. If I have an issue, I try to dissect it, see in what ways I can solve this, and how many other ways I can solve it. I try to understand what's going on behind it. Like, I go really, really deep into it, and that's what does it for me. I don't have to like memorize it. As long as I understand it, later on I can go back, hey, I learned this a week back, stuff like that. So.
Okay, so I'm the type of student that when a problem is due at Sunday at 11:59, I'll be doing it Sunday at 11:58. But the thing is that like before I do a problem, I will have discussed it with every single person in the university at least 10 times over. So I will like draw out the solutions to the problems like 5 times. Like do it on a whiteboard, do it on scratch paper, like do it in my head. but then I will actually not type it out until 11:58. But by that time, I have a pretty good grasp of what I should be doing. And then there's a problem when you submit at 12:01 and you have to email your professor. Sorry, my computer died.
So this guy walked in, we were talking one day at ECS, this guy was walking, yo guys, can you tell me the answer for this? I'm like, but do you need it? No, can you just tell me the question for this? I'm like, but what is it for? I just want to know the question. I just want to know the answer. I'm like, okay, it's cool, you know, it's we're gonna find like, the way he walked in, I was like, man, okay.
Yeah, so time breakdown. So I think when I first started off as a freshman and sophomore, I spent a lot of time, well, I mean, like, you can't have like a lot of free time because like classes are not necessarily as overloading as like taking org now, right? But I think a lot of time was spent on personal projects and just kind of like personal development. And like, I took a lot of like courses that like wasn't necessarily connected to computer science. I took a lot of like religion courses. I don't know, like it has nothing to do with computer science, but I think like one thing I'm a big believer of is like belief and experience, right? And so religion, like ontology is basically belief in like experience and determining not validity, right, but just rituals and myth, and that's a very far from the objective hell that is known as the compiler, right? But software development for me, right, is much more than just writing code. Software development, I think, is just a practice of team building and a practice of spirit. So like the way how you can tolerate tons of failure, right, is I believe very important. So the earlier 2 years, I did like a ton of yoga and stuff like that. But then like now when the classes actually started begun and hit me hard, I spend like probably like a full-time load on the classes. I wish I was like smart enough to pull like this mindset of like I'm going to do 50% of the work to get like a C, and if I did 50% of the work of someone who got an A, I still win by virtue of efficiency. But I'm not smart enough to do that, so I can't do that. But yeah, I spend around like 40 to 35 hours on my work. I would do work a part-time job, and I have been working through school. I think that's something that a lot of us do relate to. I think all of us, like, we do have a school job. For me right now, I'm working semi-part-time. They're really understanding, but so Bridgewater, on the condition of my internship, they were really eager to work with me. So I work remote. So they have me working on a consulting basis until my contract starts. But even before then, I would also work a part-time job just so I can afford the Chipotle. Yeah, I think the schoolwork, like putting time into schoolwork is important. If you're someone like me that it takes a really long time to like grasp concepts, at least like know it to heart, like I'd say just don't feel ashamed about that. Like I fail almost all the time, right? So you just build this really good tolerance to failure and tolerance to rejection. And I sometimes like, I think David, who's in the, like we did really bad on our Calculus 2 first exam, and then like we thrived the next one. So, it happens.
Okay, so my story I don't really share with a lot of people, but I think it's like a normal human thing. So like when I first started, it was just kind of like, okay, like a little bit here and there. I did like online tutorials. I took that like free time, like after you shower and you're just like hanging out in your towel, like not doing anything. I was just like, I'm gonna do like programming problems. And then every time I had free time, I'd go like all those little things that like add up, and I'd go and I'd do those like tutorials. And then all of a sudden like my life like changed, as in I had a whole bunch of free time. I got dumped, and my roommate was just like, well, you're not gonna sit around moping, you're gonna like do something. And so like I started programming, and I started like really programming. I'd like go to the labs and I'd be like, I'm not gonna go home, I'm gonna sit here, and I'd be there for like hours and hours and hours. Until it just became like the thing that I did. And even if I went to the lab and I wasn't programming, I'd be like around people that were programming. And so I'd overhear things, and I'd hear people talking about like they're sharp, and I'd hear people talking about like all these different languages I never heard of. And so just that ambient knowledge kind of picked up. So that was cool. I'd say on like how much I program now, like I still have that same like little itch. Like I can't really put a number on it, but anytime that I'm not like learning something, I try and like put in. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm like undressed. I leave everything to the last minute. I'm the worst. But however, I'm really good at cramming, and I know myself. So I usually just study like the day before an exam. However, I do know I do this because I have 3 jobs. Like I work 2 jobs here at school, and then I work on the weekends. So a lot of time I don't really have time to study. So yeah, I'm really glad I can cram. Because if not, I would not be here. But yeah, so I just think it's important to know yourself and what you're capable of doing. If you know that you can't cram, then just start studying before an exam, like a week before. But if you can cram, then go ahead and cram, as long as you get an A in that class.
Well, I guess for a time frame, I'd say a few hours a week, but unless I get a bug and my class is programming, then I'll probably be in front of my computer all night until I figure it out, but that's about it.
So I think the best way to do it is like try to treat the school like a job. So what I always try to do is try to set the first class and the last class I think with an 8-hour difference. So what that does is that when I come to a school, I spend 8 hours and maybe like 8 hours late. So I always try to spend like 8 hours for work with them.
I like that. I like that. It's, someone once told me that at some point you got to hang the shingle that says "closed for business." You need that downtime. You need that time to exercise, to relax, to just blow off steam. And if you get into a cycle where you just like go like 100%, you crash. There's a crash. There's a payment that's going to have to be made. So that's a really good strategy. I like that. Didn't know coding in a towel was a thing, but hashtag, I'm there. Okay. And so what I'm hearing a lot of is that juggling is really an issue. And I know that probably a lot of you guys are working, you're doing the school gig, and you're hustling on the side, trying to make some dollars. But you do need to put the effort into it. And the funny thing is that if this, we haven't said the P word. The P word is passion, okay? So if you have a passion for this, it doesn't feel like work. It isn't just 8 hours, right? Like, okay, I just want to keep doing this. And I think if you haven't gotten that bug yet, look for things that excite you about the technology, about what you're learning, and then just drive forward with that. Use it to fuel yourself, to push yourself further. I definitely, hackathons, these guys are like professional hackathoners, right? So, that is like super cool, and I wish we had, all we had when we were in college was the ACM programming team, which, by the way, is very cool, and hats off to anyone that's in here that does that. But it's like a different world. That's really a different kind of experience, whereas the hackathon experience is much more loose, open, and more exploratory, whereas the programming team, it's, dive into algorithms and memorize algorithms and code as fast as you possibly can. So they're really kind of two different experiences, but find your passion and then see where that leads, and start to find people that are in our really huge community here, 2,000 students. There's got to be a handful of students in this school who are pretty much where you are, or thinking the way you're thinking, and connect, join the groups, join the different clubs, and connect with them just to start building this camaraderie, because that really helps you hone that passion. It kind of, you hear them talking about this. It's like kind of fuels them to go further and push further. So don't attack this, like, because what I hear a lot is like, I just want to do, like, get the degree and get a job, and like I'm done. Like, I got no other commitment. This isn't really my passion. And I'm wondering, like, does that really work? Yeah, I guess it works. It's like, can I work at McDonald's? Yeah, I can, but I don't want to, right? I don't want to. So figure that out. Figure out what that passion is, because it's such a broad field. There's so many cool things going on, and just start diving into it. You like facial recognition. You think that's like the most amazing thing. You want an iPhone X. you know, and you want to be like just staring at yourself constantly and wondering like, how the hell does it do this? So, so go further with it. You know, try to understand what those algorithms are doing, and download open source code and start playing with it, and just go, you know, kind of cut yourself loose. You don't have to take a class to start experimenting and exploring this. Just go for it. It's out there. It's free. And there's a million people out there who if you ask a question, they will give you an answer and will help you. Okay, so we are at the 1 hour and a half point. And I still have a lot of more questions, but I think at this point I need to open it up to allow the audience to ask some questions. So why don't you think about the hardest possible question that you could ask, because they all have internships or like amazing companies, and you've heard like how many questions that they have, they're like super prepared. So I'm challenging the audience, ask them a question that they can't answer. Go for it.
No pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not hi, my name is Chris, and first of all, thank you for doing this. Yeah, it's kind of like, I'm kind of like experiencing that feeling of, oh, I don't know anything, pretty much, right? And I guess it's kind of true, so I'm thinking like, like, I don't know, if you guys, like to fix that, if you guys like need anything, I mean, maybe I could like volunteer to help out with like your projects or something, just so I could learn something. I mean, I don't know, I would like to help out. Get anything.
Right. So how can you? So so the way I'm going to rephrase that is, if I like don't have a lot of experience, how do I get experience? That's kind of what you're asking, right? How can I get, like, can you give me an opportunity where I can learn something?
Yeah, and also how to get involved. I mean, I mean, first off, I think she can tell you.
Yeah, I can.
I was about to mention something else, but yeah.
Well, for me, like I mentioned, I got in with like hackathons, so, and that was also really good to talk about for when I was interviewing, because they were all like, oh, do you have any projects? And I was like, I have 3. Like, granted, I only worked on them for like 2 days, but like 2 days straight, which is like the equivalent of like 2 weeks worth of time, like over normal school. It's like, it's a marathon. And that just got like a lot of experience, and that also like exposed me to a lot of new things. So that feeling of you don't know anything is never going to go away, but it just turns into a different side of, at first it's like, I don't know anything, and you're like scared, and then it turns into like, I don't know anything, like, and you're curious, and so you're just like, there's more to do, and it gets like exciting.
And I think on another end, right, is so like there's a bunch of open source projects and a bunch of on-campus projects that you can do. So in terms of openings, right, like ACM, for example, like they have officer positions and they have technical positions. Like websites do need to maintain. In terms of on-campus jobs or on-campus research, there's always research being done. You can get exposure to different technologies that are not necessarily in class. I know there's the iCave with Dr. Ortega.
That's the VR room.
That's a VR room, yeah, and you get exposed to Unity and game programming and shader programming. And the respective web development and engineering, MangoHacks, right? I don't direct it anymore, but it's SES team, right? Always looking for developers. They do run that ship like in engineering, like any other company, right? Burn down boards, stand-ups, deployments. It's production software, right? People do use it. So I think the opportunities are everywhere. I think what she mentioned is that the feeling of not knowing anything, like I'll be there. There's a thing called imposter syndrome that's like really talked about in the industry. And there are times like everyone Googles everything, there's like very rarely anyone who like knows everything off the bat, and if they do, they're jerks. They should just be shunned. But so I think the opportunity is everywhere. You can always go to Mario Rasso sends out emails for research opportunities, REUs, and again, if anything, right? Like I got my start working unpaid, right, at a startup, and I didn't know anything, right, from a startup weekend. And granted, I wasn't a competent engineer then, still not now, right? But I was able to use that opportunity to learn. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would just add that. So the other way of rephrasing what you're saying is you'd like a mentor.
Yeah.
And so yeah.
That sounds much better.
Yes. So there are a lot of different ways you can accomplish that, and I think part of it is, again, finding people who have similar interests like you do. So it isn't just, oh, I just want to follow that person. I don't know why, I just want to. There's a reason behind it. So it's what is the interest that you have? What kind of technology? Because there's probably an open source package that's been developed in that area. And so if you go to a club meeting and say, hey, can we have a workshop on, I don't know, Spark? I want to learn Spark. I want to understand how to initiate, jobs and that kind of stuff. So, okay, great. Let's do it. And so you get a group of people together that are now talking about Spark, and that really kind of helps you, identify and helps like overcome some of the obstacles that you might have learning this stuff on your own. So reaching out like that is one way you could accomplish it.
Also, I just wanted to add too, if you can find anything, then just do it, just create it. I mean, that's what I did a while back. So if you can find anything that you like or anything that you can contribute to that you're not interested, because it happens, with different people. So maybe you might have different things that we like. If you can find anything, then just create it. Make it yourself. Sit down one day, oh, what does it take to do this thing I want, and then start doing it. And then I promise you, if you are passionate enough and you follow up and you work on it every day, people will join you.
So I had being raised.
Yep.
Okay, so I guess like my question for you guys is, now that you have your foot in the door, like for example, my situation, I got my foot in the door somewhere, and I studied really hard for the interview, but now when it comes to actually going there and actually working and showing them what I did so great in the interview, I'm kind of like nervous because I don't want to disappoint. You know what I mean? Like I want to keep making that good impression, but I feel like I'm not super ready. Does that make sense?
Right. That makes a lot of sense.
Okay, I think I'm probably the youngest here. Well, no, I'm not. I'm the second youngest. So I've only had, No, in terms of years. So I have only had one internship, so I know how you feel. When I got there, I didn't know anything, but they usually know this. They expect that you won't know anything. They don't expect that you're gonna build like, a new software for their company in the summer. So what they're usually gonna do is they're gonna assign you a mentor, or if they don't, usually the people who you will be working with will usually guide you along the way. It's not like you're gonna be given a project by yourself. So don't feel like you need to prove to them, like they know your level, and they're not, expecting for you to like change the world.
Did you prepare like prior going in? Like once you already had it?
Yeah.
You,
So what I did do is I asked them what technologies they used, and I kind of refreshed a little on that. But I obviously did not know like some of them at all. So, but I did do research, but I had not done full-on projects. So I don't know.
Tell them when you got your internship.
Huh?
Tell them when you got your internship.
Yeah, I got my internship.
No, the carnival one.
Oh yeah.
No, you got it really late.
Yeah, I got it. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So if you don't have an internship right now and you're freaking out because you feel like it's really late in the game, it's not late. I got my internship in May last year. So, well, yeah, in May. So literally the week before the semester ended, I landed an internship.
So directly to that, I actually have an experience on that with the job that I got from him. So my boss was one of those people that was really smart, and like he would throw some words out there that I would be like,
I don't know.
most of the time, I swear to God, most of the time I wouldn't understand what he was talking about, and I'll feel intimidated because like he's throwing all these words out. But like after you actually look them up, you're like, oh, okay, that's like it's this, right? But I think what I learned from that is that ask as many questions as you can, and like if you're not sure, ask again, and ask questions. It's better if you understand what they're asking you to do, and like if you understand how to do it, than doing it wrong. So like ask a lot of questions. If you don't understand something, don't feel like, oh, no, like ask questions, and that's how you learn most, by asking questions. So yeah.
Thank you.
Questions? Yep.
I have a question. So, to prepare for the interview, you said you have to do data structures, practice, do interview questions. But one question I have is exactly where do you start in all of this? Because for a new student coming in, this is a lot of information coming in. I don't know if I should start here, I should start programming first, I should start data structures, I should take questions first. I don't know which direction to choose first.
My advice that I give everyone is you start at the beginning. Now I know it's kind of hard to figure out where the beginning is, but normally that's like programming, so you kind of understand it. So the way I always thought of it was like programming 1 and 2 are kind of like you're learning vocabulary, but then data structures is like you're learning grammar. So once you get like comfortable enough like with the syntax, that's when you start like learning your structure. It's kind of like with children, like you kind of like they hear words, but then they start in like at 5 years old in kindergarten, they're like, okay, this is a noun, like they assign things. It's kind of the same practice. And then you just start at the beginning and you work your way up. That's, yeah, I don't know if there's a more clear way.
So yeah, schoolwork wise, yes, start at programming 1 and just follow that whole step line. And then, but in terms of personal project, I think like unless you start one yourself, and I think the simplest one is just make a website, right? And make a website about yourself. And that is where it'll pick off. Like nothing in school is going to teach you how to make a website unless you take a class specifically to teach how to make a website, right? And then once you learn that, you pick up new technology along the way. So I always see like school and like your outside work to be parallel, and you try to keep them as even as possible along the process. So, but they're not together usually. It's always like separate. Like, oh, my personal project, I've done this, and that, and then my schoolwork, I've done this, and that. So it's like it depends like which one are you trying to find where to start on.
Questions? You guys have figured it out? Okay.
I have a question. So, you talked about passion, right? I just wanted, when have you, would you say that you have passion for computer science or programming?
Do we have a passion?
Do you have
Yes,
passion
you
for
have a
computer
passion.
science and programming? That's the question.
Absolutely. You start programming and then you get to a point where you're just like, I do this because it's fun and there's always something new to learn. And computer science is so broad that you could literally venture into anything you want, right? So some of us are like, have expertise in machine learning. Other people have more expertise in web dev or like natural language processing, more into research side, this and that. Like, so yes, we do have passion, but the passion that we have is usually different.
I guess, yeah, I mean, there's always something, at least for me, I can't tell you how a passion for something specific. I like the fact that I can write something and make something do something. That's the way I can say it, you know. I can write a program that makes the computer does this. And that I love that fact that I can do that. Write a system, write stuff that makes things happen. So I'm all over the place. I go from web development to like machine learning to like not OS to like, so I don't have a specific thing. I like to learn new things as I go, or like I like to say I learn lazily. You know, as I picked up a project, I learn what the project is about, and then I move on and learn something else, and that's what I do. So, but I like that's what I like.
I'm probably gonna have the most shocking answer here, and it's no. But that's because I don't like for me, I'm not in love with computer science. I'm in love with like what it can do. You know, like for me, it's about chasing the problem and then finding a really elegant solution to it. Like if you ask me what my dream job is, it would be a soccer player. But I'm not good at that. So but I think the same parallels what you can get and the stuff that you are passionate about can apply to your work and stuff like that. And I think. Like for me, and I think one thing that's not usually mentioned, especially in computer science, is that it's an extremely large field. I think, what is it? the jobs extend far beyond engineering itself. And the thing is that like these organizations, they require organizing. You know, products need to be designed, products need to be tested. You know, if you happen to be on the Intel other side of things, right, the economics of things still need to work. And I think I'm very like I like tech and I like all the stuff that it can do. And I think where you do end up finding your passion, for me, I found it more necessarily in the chase of a solution.
So one recruiter recently said to me that, oh yeah, you know, all of those like non-CS students are realizing they need to get digital skills in order to, you know, impress anybody these days. So I would say that, you know, this notion of programming and what it is and what it means is kind of like an extension of, you know, reading, writing, arithmetic. And it's just a tool. So at some point, you know, pretty much the educational system will catch up and everybody will know how to code. I mean, it's already happened in England. It's already happened in a number of other Eastern European countries where it's mandated from kindergarten to be exposed to programming. Just like when my kids went into second grade, they came home and they showed me a PowerPoint presentation. I'm like, what? Okay, you know, you're hired. Go do my next PowerPoint for me. So, I mean, so this whole notion of like, oh, coding, that's going to be my job. I'm going to be in a cubicle. I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. It's not that. It's a tool. And like what Angela's saying, it's really just you're chasing the solution. It may turn out that you start your career as a software engineer, but 10 years from now, you know, maybe you're working in the medical field and you're working next to a scientist and you're doing like medical stuff that you didn't like, how did I learn this? And why, like, how did I go from being a software engineer to a chemist working to solve cancer? And it's just because you start to gravitate to that problem starts, like every day you wake up and you're thinking, man, I'm this much closer, I'm this much closer. And little by little, it just attracts you, it sucks you in. So I think the skill sets that you're learning here, to whatever extent you can pursue them, are going to give you those set of digital skills that will open up all kinds of new doors that, you know, maybe you didn't think that you liked this other kind of discipline. But now with the digital skills, you're relevant in that field, and you can pursue those other interests that you have. So that's really a cool perspective. Questions? Yes.
I guess this question is mainly geared towards those who came from the business background. Do you feel like coming from that background where it's not as math intense changes the type of projects you work on and how you approach them?
Well, I actually changed because it wasn't math intensive. In high school, I was really geared towards math. I only went into business because my parents made me. But then I was like, no, I don't want to. However, I do admit that when I do projects, I usually end up PMing, which I feel like it's because of the business background. So yeah, I do enjoy, you know, creating something and then having a vision of it as like how it can help the community, which if you think about it, it's kind of like a business model. So yeah, I do think that you can take whatever you're studying with computer science and you can make something really great out of it. So in my opinion, for me, it did really kind of go in through whatever project I'm working with.
I mean, I pretty much agree with everything she just said. Yeah, computer science is one of those things that you can really apply to anything, and you could just go your way.
I have something actually. So, well, that comes around, let's say. I was actually a business major at first. Then in business management, and then in high school I was like in like this IB AP like business, and I really excelled there actually. So I went to FIU thinking I'll do business, right? And 2 semesters in, I took macroeconomic, and I'm like, this is not for me, and I switched out. So what do I do with those skills I learned before, right? I didn't know it would come in handy until my internship with JP Morgan. When I was in JP Morgan, I ended up taking a team lead position. So I was leading a team of interns. And then like soft skills you learn for business, because people in business, we really know how to talk sometimes. Some don't, but most of us do, right? And we're really able to communicate to people in a more human to human level. And that really what sets you apart as a potential leader. Because these people are the people that look up to you. And like if you're leading a team, it's quite hard. Like what do you do when like you have a disagreement or things like that, right? That's where your expertise can like come into play from a business background.
I think my question was if you go to a job interview and then they ask you to like make recursions, should you make it as simple as possible or as complex as possible? Because there's like many ways of doing the same thing.
Keep it simple.
Keep it simple.
Recursion is how. You should keep as simple as possible.
Recursion is hard to follow, right?
Yeah.
So if you can make a recursion as simple as possible, I guess make it as simple as possible.
I'd just say do it in a way that you can explain.
Okay.
Good answer.
If you haven't been in a study group where you've gone to the whiteboard and written code and then thought about problems with other people, you got to do that. So that's your third homework. So it's Matrix, you're going to watch the Matrix, you're going to do what else? Right, and then you're going to get with some friends, somebody in your group that are in the class, and you're going to write code together on a whiteboard. You're going to say, I'm going to start doing this, and you're going to start communicating and talking to the other people in the room, getting their input, changing the code, and get used to that feeling of being in that kind of environment, because that right there is your audition. That's, like if you're an actor, that's your audition to that company. Questions? Comments? Yeah.
I'd like to add that like you can do the whiteboard thing with your friends with HackerRank. That's because like 90% of the problems you're gonna get in interviews have probably been on HackerRank at some point. So like get with your friends, do HackerRank problems on a whiteboard. This is pretty much the exact environment that you're going to be interviewing in. And yeah, you should really get used to it.
I guess we can do interview tips. Yeah.
Adding on to what he just said, so as a lot of you know, Angelo's like one of my best friends, and one of the greatest things that ever happened to me while I was interviewing last semester, he would literally call me like randomly, and he would pretend he was an interviewer, because a lot of your first-time interviews will be phone calls, and so they'll basically ask you to talk about technical stuff. Well, if it's not behavioral, but usually all the ones I've had are technical, like when it comes to phone calls. And it was really helpful. So if you guys can get like a study buddy who can do that to you, you'll see that you'll progress, and it'll be easier when you actually get the real one.
I have a thing on the random phone calls. So especially interviewing with Google, they take a very long time. They like to go at their pace. And so if they call you and they're like, hi, it's so-and-so from Google, do you have 10 minutes to talk? And like you're in the car driving and you say no, it's going to be like 2 days till they call you back. So like you don't ever say no. You want to be like ready whenever like they'll call you within normal hours. But like you want to be prepared to like put on your happy smiling face like at any time if you're waiting for a call, because like waiting is like it makes it worse.
Oh yeah, companies are late.
Yeah, they take a while.
I just have an interview tip that I want to share with you guys from when I interviewed at Microsoft. They give you kind of like a mentor to help you with the interview process, and this guy really helped me out. And I think this is why I actually got the job, not because of my actual computer science skills. He gave me a couple of tips. Actually, he gave me a lot of tips. But some of the ones that I remember specifically were two things. The posture when you're talking to the interviewer, like you want to have a posture that you're kind of paying attention and you're interested. and that says a lot of like that creates an impression on the interviewer. Like if you're like sitting back or like I was doing this and that. No, you have to be like paying attention, like giving him like your full attention to the interview and stuff like that. And the second thing that he told me was that I remember was that whenever your interviewer is asking you something and you're trying to explain to him that he doesn't understand, then you should write it on a whiteboard. So like if you're trying to not the code, let's say he asks you about a project that you're working on, and you try to explain to him like face by face, it's better if you actually go to the whiteboard and write specifically the project that you're working on, and that'll make a huge difference because he's gonna remember you like the guy that wrote in the whiteboard. So yeah.
Can you describe to me like the process of the Google interview? Like there was how many interviews and like phone interviews, whiteboard interviews, like.
For me, I didn't have any on-site interviews, but I did have 5 technical phone interviews. And they call you, they send you like a blank Google Doc, and then the interviewer is just like, "Hi, my name is. Are you ready?" And you're like, "Yep." And they're like, "Okay." And then they start, and you have to write it in like a blank editor. There's no help. There's no text. You're writing on a Google Doc. And that's it. And that's how all of the interviews went, for the most part. And they just vary in like difficulty of type of question. So, and all of those happened over the course of 3 months.
So yeah, the Google interview is exactly like she said, but Google doesn't do any behavioral type questions, at least to me. What they did, once you finish the question that you asked, they give like 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and then on the interview they ask you, do you have any questions? And in there, basically, what they're trying to test is if you have like good question, you basically have to find questions that show that you are interested in the company. So when you are interviewing with them, really have a genuine question that you want to know, like how the workday, something like that.
Basically, just on the phone and you're typing code and you kind of like speaking out loud what you're thinking about and like your feedback.
And they are also in the Google Docs that's shared, so they see what you write.
So I think we've got less than 10 minutes. I'm going to let each panelist have a close, just 30 seconds. What's top on your mind about having these students prepare themselves, or anything that's burning in your thoughts that we haven't covered that you want to throw out there? So why don't we start with you?
So you can also do. Okay, so when I send my application to Google, I had to write like respond to questions, and I don't remember the question, but I really tried to show with my responses that I was interested in Google. And one question was, what's your background according to Google or something like that? And I really spent time to respond to that question. I said that I'm Cuban, so I said that as someone who has lived in a country with no internet connection, that I could not believe more in Google project, and they have a project called Project Bloom, which basically wants to bring internet to everybody on it. So I said that I could not believe more in those kind of stuff that they're doing. So if you're applying to a company, try to find something that they're doing that you believe in, and put it in the cover letter.
I would say make your friends test you and everything. Have them call you, have them whiteboard you, and I think that's a good.
Yeah, she actually woke me up from like sleeping during shell hacks and was like, "All right, I'm interviewing you like right now." I was like half asleep, like what? On top of that, just finding those people that are gonna like be there, like you'll have your friends, but then you'll have like your programmer friends. And these are going to be the people that you like hang around with in like the lab, that you go to like maybe come ACM meetings with, and then like go out and like sit around and do things after. Or you people that you go to hackathons with, just people that you can talk about like what you enjoy, because like seeing other people doing it is going to keep you encouraged and keep you going. And that for me at least, that helped a lot.
Trust in the process. There's always a way forward if there's a will. If someone as stupid as I can find a career here, you guys can as well. I think one big tip you should probably take home is head of my head and it just went away. Oh yeah, it's just end of the day, like interviewers are just, you know, again, engineering is teams. You know, there is no project out there where you're just going to be some lone wolf coder, right? You know, whipping up an entire project by yourself. That's very rare, very, very rare. So I guess in that, really, it's just you're not going to be alone. So trust in the process, and there's always people willing to help.
Something I want to add is you want to be friends with your recruiter. You want your recruiter to be the person that helps you. So like every step of the first company I interviewed with was Google, and that was a terrible mistake because I sucked and I didn't know anything. But I feel like I got a lot further in the process because I was always talking to my recruiter. I was like, if I screwed up a question, I was like, so this happened, but thank you for the opportunity, this and that. And I got really far considering that like I didn't know how to do anything. And I feel like that has a lot to do with the fact that I was talking to recruiters. Same thing with Microsoft. I had my first round interview here, completely sucked. I was freaking out the entire time. And the guy gave me his email, and he was like, if you solve this problem, email it to me. And I emailed it to him, and I thanked them for the thing, whatever, and they actually flew me out for a final round. I didn't get it, but like showing interest and passion, and that you're enjoying something, it really pushes you above the other candidates.
I think I said it before, so I'm just gonna reiterate. Learning how to learn. You have to know how to learn things well and fast. That's what did it for me. Looking at a problem, dissecting it, seeing what it needs to be done to fix it or solve it. It doesn't matter in the domain, like Steve was saying, that regardless of the domain of the problem. I think that's a skill that an engineer, at least in computer science, should have. And I think for me, it helped me a lot when I go interviews or when I see a problem. Learning how to learn and how to dissect the problem. So learning how to take it and learn what you need to learn in order to solve it, and then also how to dissect it and how to break it down and see what you need to solve.
So let's see. Step 1, find a group of friends that you really enjoy working with. Step 2, go to these hackathons. Step 3, if you're a sophomore or freshman, apply to these internships that don't require experience, like the mentors or explorer programs. Those are very useful. If I had known, I would jumped on that like day one when I first got here. Same, right?
Yeah.
Let's go ahead.
So this is like the mic drop? Is this where we should just drop it?
Drop the mic.
Or we just walk out?
Don't drop it. Don't drop it.
And leave you guys in like awe, you know? All right, well, thanks everybody for coming. All of our panelists, they have fought the fight, the good fight, and they have succeeded, and they all know that you can do the same. So, you know, reach out to them, talk to them, worship the ground that they walk on. But really realize that you could be here next year. You could be doing exactly the same thing to the next generation. So it's your challenge, guys. Make it happen.